hasn't been that long since my kids were toddlers, and I remember when they were picky eaters. Oh, I remember the battles at the dinner table of me telling them how many bites they needed to take in order to get dessert and struggling with them to try new foods and celebrating the clean plate club and doing all of these things and really just being very assertive and trying to be very controlling over their eating habits. And you know what? To this day, my 15-year-old is still a pretty picky eater. So I wanted to bring on my good friend, Alyssa Miller, who is a dietitian and a picky eating specialist. She can help you avoid some of the mistakes that I made. I shouldn't call them mistakes. And she does a really good job in this episode about not calling them mistakes and really wanting to give ourselves some grace because we do these things because we know our kid needs to be healthy. We need them to eat foods. And so if you feel like you're struggling with that, this episode is going to be for you. Alyssa is a wealth of knowledge, and she's also offering us her training on how to reverse picky eating for free. And you can find that training at nutritionforlittles.com/eat veggies. I hope you enjoy this episode. Okay, thanks so much for joining us today. I already gave you a little bit of background on my guest today, my good friend Alyssa Miller. Hey, Alyssa.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. So why don't you introduce yourself real quick to our audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Alyssa. I'm a registered dietitian and picky eating specialist. I'm also a mom to three small children. So I've been around the block with a few different types of eaters, and that's been really fun. So, yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited to be on here with you.
Yes. And now, Alyssa, tell us the age of kids that you work with. So you focus on kids who are picky eaters and causing a lot of drama when it comes to
Yeah.
mealtime. And you work with a little bit of a wider age range than I work with. So tell all of our listeners and watchers.
Yeah, so typically the parents who come to me have kids ages between 1 and 7 years old. I do get a trickle of parents with older kids because we know that picky eating is not quite the small phase that most parents think that it is. So sometimes I'll get even older parents come to work with me. But the reason why I focus kind of on that age range of 1 to 7, that's when we have the most amount of influence. They're not really in school as much or with friends as much. So we have the most amount of influence to really change their eating habits then. And that's when a lot of the research has been done on that age range. So, and obviously, I have research backed information I'm starting with, plus, all the mom approved stuff as well. But that's kind of the age range that I like to focus on. But of course, pick eating really can never end. Like, even adults, I get daily messages from moms or even dads that say, can you work with my husband? Can you work with my wife or whatever it might be? And even I myself have learned how to like mushrooms over time. I didn't like mushrooms for almost my entire life and still learning new foods to like. So it's an ever evolving process.
You got to teach me the mushroom trick, and then I could also use olives, an olive trick. Those
Oh,
are the two. Those
me
are the two
too.
foods. Oh,
Those
really?
are mine. I kid you not, those are mine. But I always joke because, well, it's not really funny. It's dark humor. It's fine. Olives for me are because the first time I ever tried an olive was at my grandfather's funeral. So I think there's more to it, which is actually, funnily enough, we can tie this in. I talk a lot of you, as you know, I take a root cause approach to picky eating. And sometimes it is like a connotation or an experience that you've had. And olives for me, I'm like, I just don't know I'll ever get over that one because it's so paired with this like sad part of my
Yeah.
life. But I also don't love the taste or texture. So
That is sad of mine. It's like my mom doesn't like mushrooms and my dad didn't like olives. So I just feel like
oh,
it's
that's
something
funny.
tied to that. We probably didn't have a lot of it around, but
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about the ages because it's a little bit of a you start with younger kids than I work with. So I
Yeah.
wanted families to know that. But also kind of to give my perspective. So like my kids are older, right? So my kids are 12 and 15 right now. And it's just so interesting because as I've gotten to know you, I'm thinking back on that age range when they were that 2, 3 time period. And I'm looking at them now, and like my older daughter, my 15-year-old, she is still kind of picky.
Yeah.
And my little one, she's not that, she's 12, not that little, but she is like really a very good eater. And I don't know, I just look back on I was thinking before we were talking about my 15-year-old, and it's like, I remember when she was really little. I remember I can picture this distinctly, her sitting in her high chair while I was in the kitchen making dinner. And I would put little scraps of, whatever I was making or vegetables I had cut up or whatever on her tray. And she would just sit there and kind of mess with it and eat it. And then it's like, I don't really know what happened. But as she got to be a little bit older, like that 2, 3 age, she
Yeah.
started getting much more picky. So at the time, what I liked to blame it on was, of course, not myself.
Yeah. It wasn't
I
you.
didn't
Let me
have
tell
anything
you.
to do with it. But I also felt like we kind of, as she got older, we started going out to eat more, like now that she was easier to
Mhm.
like take out. And I
Yeah.
do feel like kids menus at restaurants are
Yes.
like a really big problem in this space. Do you agree with
It's
that?
literally the bane of my existence. It drives me
Yeah.
bananas. Kids' menus are so tailored to this very standard American diet that like everyone thinks that kids eat. And so it's a lot of mac and cheese, chicken nuggets,
Uh-huh.
cheeseburgers, fries, all those sorts of things. And while I understand the restaurant's perspective, right? Like I get that they want to make parents happy and they want to have like an easy meal for the parents. It really sets kids up for success, both with just picky eating in general, but also with going out to eat with their parents. Now as my kids are getting older, the experiences that we get to have where we go to restaurants, experience new food together, new cultures together, learn about things together can be such a beautiful experience, especially with new foods that we're kind of just like deciding that that's not going to happen for kids and
Right.
keeping their palate
Yeah,
super limited. Yeah, it
super limited,
drives me
super
bananas.
bland. Is there a time that pickiness kind of peaks
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
starts? Like, what is that window?
Yeah, so usually we see picky eating start around 2.5 years of age
Mm.
and kind of peak right around the 3 to 4. And then it kind of, if you handle it, in a good way, you can kind of come out of it. And then it comes back usually when your kid is school age. So they start to go see and they go, oh, why does Susie have fruit snacks in her lunch? And oh, my friend made fun of me for eating sardines or whatever it is. And so now they're like, all of a sudden, there's a different level of picky eating that starts to set in around school age. So that's why I really like that kind of 1 to 7 age range. There's a few different phases of development that come in and out. So, but parents always hate me when I say this, but I think it's really important to note that picky eating in it of itself is developmentally appropriate to start having these like moments of pickiness. And because it
Oh.
comes around 2.5, it's actually developmentally appropriate because if you think about like way back in the day, toddlers are literally toddling away from their parents. So you actually do want them to be more cautious of what goes in their mouth. They could choke, it could be poisonous. Like, what are they getting into?
Oh.
Obviously, in our current parenting helicopter, we're always around space. That's not happening as frequently. So we take it as this like moral failure or this problem with our kids. But actually, pickiness is a good thing at first. But obviously, it's not something that needs to stick around for long because the goal is to teach our kids what is safe, what is healthy, what is good for them to be eating and nourishing their body. And so we need to take that cue as, okay, this is our time to shine. We're uniquely positioned to help our kids eat healthy foods and eat a variety of foods. But oftentimes that pickiness sets in and we're like, what is happening? As you can tell, it also coincides with, as you know, that age range where they start to get really independent. They want to like practice autonomy, which is all well and good. We want that for our kids. I don't want my kid to be 18 and still asking me to go to the bathroom, right? Like I want them to have that
Yes.
independence, but oftentimes it comes out in these areas of life that we have very little control of. We can't force them to eat, we can't force them to fall asleep, and we can't force them to toilet, right? So those are the times where kids really have energy to like dig in their heels and show that they have autonomy and control.
Yeah, and show that they have some control, which is so frustrating to us parents when we're like,
Yes.
we know what's best for you. We just want you to go to bed. We just need
Right.
you to eat some vegetables. Like it's for your
Exactly.
health. And there's no way, unfortunately, to reason with your kids at that age to explain to them the importance of these
Yeah.
things.
Let me
So
just
we
use
gotta
logic a little. They need a
yeah.
longer lecture. Let's try that.
Let's
Yeah.
not. Kids are, yeah, your 2.5-year-old is not listening to the
No,
words. It's just,
exactly right.
your kid is just having the experiences. So that's when we have
Yep.
to learn some little parenting tricks and some new strategies so that we can get our kids to eat, to sleep, to do these things that we know are so important to them. It's just funny. So as we've gotten to know each other over the last few years, and I hear you in your profession doing your thing, and I'm just looking back at myself like, oh my God, we were doing all the things wrong, which I see now that you're not supposed to do them, but I think these are really common. So I'm just going to blow through some and then you can.
Just a little thing, not wrong. The thing is like truly we were not taught how to do this, right? Like probably your parents didn't teach you to do this. No one teaches you in school. No one teaches, there's no like new parent class. So I just want to clarify. I understand that I feel this way too. I'm a mom of 3 kids. I always feel like I'm doing something like quote unquote wrong. But I will encourage any parent who's listening to this, there's always things that you're gonna be able to improve on anything. And it's not that you're doing it wrong intentionally. It's that you don't know. You don't know what you
Yeah.
don't know. And so even if you unintentionally made picky eating worse because of your behavior or something you did or didn't do, you are not like too far gone. Everything can be reversed. You get to reset. My good friend always teaches me this about parenting, and I think it applies for picky eating, applies to every area. It's okay to change your mind. You get new
Yeah.
information and you change your mind, you do things
Hmm.
differently. and your kids will be okay with that. In fact, they'll thank you for it. So it's okay to change your mind and do things differently. Anyways,
Yeah.
okay, what are the things
Oh
that
wow,
come up?
I'm really living the "it's okay to change your mind" world with a 15-year-old.
Oh, I believe
just
it.
just wait, just wait.
I believe it. Yep.
Here are some of the things that the strategies that we used. I'm using air quotes with the word strategies here because
Yep.
these were not strategies. These were just, I think, in retrospect, really ways for me to just try to control
Yeah.
what she was doing when she wasn't doing what
Yeah.
I thought she should be doing, which was trying new foods, eating all of her food, getting the nourishment that she needed. So
Yep.
we were counting bites for sure. You have to have X 3 bites of this, 5 bites of that, 1 bite of that before you can be done. That was
Yep.
common. Whenever we gave new foods, she was required to try it. You
Yep.
have to taste it. You can't say that you don't like it. You have to try it for
Yep.
sure. And then we were always celebrating the Clean Plate Club,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Whoever finished if it was me, dad, sister, whatever, we were always celebrating and praising the people that finished all of their food. And so, as I've learned so much from you, that's a lot just about, I mean, that's not really setting our kids up for great habits, right? Because we
Right.
don't want to be forcing them to eat. If they're not hungry, we
Right.
want them to be able to make some of these choices. So, how do we help them? How do we not kind of do these things, and how do we help them make the right decisions and encourage them in the right way so that we're not being this kind of controlling, domineering force that's
Yeah.
counting bites and
Oh
rewarding
my
for
gosh.
dessert? That's the other thing. And I mean, I got to be honest, I kind of sometimes still do that. So,
Oh, it's so easy to do, right? They're so motivated by food, right? Which is,
uh-huh.
again, biologically designed. We should be motivated by food. Specifically, this age range is also very motivated by carbohydrates. So, a lot of parents will say, oh, they love bread, they love fruit, those sorts of things. Well, that is biologically by design. They need far more carbohydrates than adults do because they're growing at such a rapid rate. So, first and foremost, let yourself off the hook a little bit. It makes sense that your kids love carbohydrates, love
Okay.
desserts, love things like that, and we want to be smart, right? Like we want to be intentional about what they have access to, what we give them, what form we give it to them, all those sorts of things. So I also just want to super normalize this. The whole reason, and maybe this is a better way to start, the whole reason I got into this part of my profession, so became a registered dietitian. I actually worked with tube feeding patients for a while, so people who couldn't eat by mouth. And my favorite part of my job was when they were getting off the tube feeding and starting to eat by mouth again. Because if you can imagine, months, if not sometimes years and even some children had never ever put food in their
Mm.
mouth before. So they're going from, I mean, I just want you to really imagine this for a second. Just drinking maybe water, maybe in your mouth, no food for months, if not years. And then all of a sudden you're asked to eat a banana or an avocado. Like
Yeah.
you're like, huh. Like all of a sudden I love those foods. And I'm like, ooh, that would be so confusing to my system. It would be very overwhelming. It would feel stressful. It would feel scary, uncertain, all these things. That's essentially what's happening with our kids. They are not super used to these foods like we are as adults. We have 20, 30, 40 years of experience of kind of like a Rolodex, if you're old enough to know what a Rolodex is, of information of what food is tastes like. And you can make predictions where you're like looking at, I remember seeing a pomegranate for the first time. I think it was in like seventh grade. I saw like a whole pomegranate for the first time. And my friend brought him home and she was like, oh, do you want to pull apart this pomegranate and pull out these little seeds? And I'm like, what are we doing? This feels so alien.
Are
And
we
it's like,
allowed to do
yeah,
this?
exactly. Like, this is so much work. What are we doing? And it's just so jarring. But when you're an adult, you can open up a food like a pomegranate, maybe you've never seen it before, and go, oh, this is really red and juicy. And this white part kind of looks like flesh that you wouldn't normally eat. Like, you can start to make predictions that kids can't. So we want to be thinking about it from their perspective. And you're absolutely right that it's not setting them up for good habits long term. And that's, I always love to tell my students to think,
Yeah.
okay, what kind of eater are we raising? They're an adult now, right? Like,
Right. You're not just trying to get through dinner right
yes,
now,
I know.
right?
Yeah. And that's so hard because I know parents are like, but I want them to eat broccoli tonight and forever. How do
Yeah.
I get both? And I think it's really important to also note that those strategies that you said that you used are 100% out of a place of love. You want her to eat healthy foods. You care about her. You care about her development. You want her to thrive. And as a parent, I know the real feeling of I don't want a hangry meltdown later. I don't want them to not go
Yes.
to sleep because they're so hungry. I don't want them waking up in the middle of the night because they're so
Right.
hungry.
We
I
got
don't
to go
want
to
to
bed.
carry
Yeah.
them out of the Chick-fil-A play place screaming and crying because they didn't eat enough. And I know that, but everyone's looking at me like I'm the bad parent and we're like judging ourselves. There's so much tied up into food and we know how important it is. So it is the logical next step to count their bites, to demand that they clean their plate, to give them ultimatums, to bribe with candy, to make them a separate meal just so they're eating, to,
Mm.
set up them for what we feel like is success in the moment. It makes complete sense. So I want to validate all of that. And again, going back to why I do what I do is I loved that part of my job so much, but I didn't understand picky eating in the same way until my son started getting picky. And I was doing those same things. So just like absolutely full transparency, I have said all of those same things, Jessica, just absolutely. So, and anyone listening, I've probably done anything that you're thinking you've done. I've probably did it. I was so desperate, especially as a dietitian. I knew how important nutrition was. So I was like, I can't have a
Yeah.
3-year-old who doesn't eat food. Like, I can't have this. Right. And so that's when I started to get into this profession, go back into it. And I always think it's so funny because when I learned in undergrad what to do with a picky eater versus being a mom,
Oh, right.
hilarious what they thought would work. And this is the same advice we get today sometimes. Well, just feed them what you want them to eat. You're like, okay, great. That works for a period of time. But over time, again, what kind of eater do we want to raise? All of a sudden, they go to school and they have access to candy and fruit snacks, and other
Mhm.
people have what are those Uncrustables or whatever. They're going to be exposed to other foods. So we need to make sure that we're setting them up for success to eat because they want to and they need to, and not because we're telling them to. We're not going to go to
Yes.
college and sit behind them and be like, eat 3 more bites of your bean soup. We're not
Right.
going to do that. And so it's really important now to take those precautions to set them up. So, a few tips that I want to give you to do that,
Yes.
right? Number one, the best thing that you can do is follow what I call the division of responsibility. Now, this can be really huge. In fact, there's like an entire video lesson inside my course about this. But to break it down really simply, is the parent provides and the child decides. So you get to decide what comes into your home, what goes onto the plate, when they eat, where they eat. And then your kid gets to decide, and this is tricky for parents, how
What they
much
eat.
or
Oh
if
no.
they eat that food from what you give them. Because the example that you gave, and I've done this too, I totally understand it, especially when we're like traveling or excited about new food. But the example you gave that a lot of parents have in their home, and I'm not saying listen, take the meat and leave the bones. I love to tell parents, everyone has a different family culture. Everyone has different things that work for them, don't work for them, that are priorities to them, and whatever your values are. So hear me when I say this. This is coming from like, I always joke that I have like a picky eating dietitian hat and then I have my mom hat. And those are
Yeah, yeah,
different sometimes. Those don't always
yeah.
line up perfectly. But the ideal wouldn't be to say, when you have something new, you have to take a bite. Because
Yeah.
essentially what you're saying to someone is, hey, Jessica, I have this unicycle and I'm borrowing it for 1 hour and you have to ride it. Get on it and ride
Yeah.
it right now. You're like, no,
I'm
no, no, I haven't
scared.
ridden a bike in 10 years. What are we
Yeah.
doing? Right? Like you're jumping. And what a lot of parents don't get is that you're jumping from 0 to 100 really quickly to try
Hmm.
something new. You have to warm them up to it. You have to get them used to it. You have to fill that Rolodex of information for them. And that does unfortunately take time. Now, some kids will sit in front of something new and take a bite, and it will be so exciting and so cool for them. That's not every kid. If you're listening to this episode, it's probably not your kid. And that's okay. It just means that they need a little bit more time. And there are things that we can do to speed up that process.
Are you saying like they need to see that food multiple times? Like it's
Yeah.
not just like you serve it
Sometimes,
one
yeah.
day on a Tuesday and you're like, oh, forget it. They're not eating it. I'm never serving that again. It's like you
Yeah.
stick with it, maybe.
So it's a big mistake I see parents make is they assume that however they responded the first time is how they're going to respond forever. That's
Uh-huh.
absolutely true. The second one is you hit the nail on the head. One thing that we have to do, like let's say an avocado is a great example. You know, we were touch and go with avocado for with my kids here and there through different spots. And one of the things with an avocado is you can present it in multiple ways. So don't just slice it up and put it on their plate and hope they eat it, right? You can coat it in something like hemp seeds. You can put it on a little tooth fork thing. You can smash it up and make little guacamole. You can do avocado toast. You can put it on top of tacos. There's so many different ways to expose them to avocado. So that exposure is really, really key. One of the things I teach my students, there's kind of like these foundational principles that no matter why your kid is picky, you need to set them up for success in this way. And one of those things is exposure. Kids need more exposure to the unicycle. It's like this is a
Yeah.
brand new food for them. This is a brand new experience. This is a skill they have to learn and something they need to become comfortable with. There is ways to speed it up, right? Like if you're trying to ride a unicycle, you should probably learn from a unicyclist, not from me, right? There are ways to speed it up. But ultimately, that's what we're asking kids to do, which just sets us both up for failure. And then we're
Yeah.
frustrated because our expectations are too high. They're frustrated because they're feeling pressure and they want to perform for you. They just want to be good. They just want to be
Right.
loved by you. And they don't want you to be mad at them for not eating something that they're deeply uncomfortable with. And so, something that I think parents can help do is just have that different perspective of
Yeah.
our children experiencing food for sometimes the first time. And it's oftentimes takes a little longer than we think.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I mean, another thing that we were guilty of doing, and I know this is like not what we're supposed to be doing, but help me give people some guidance on what the better thing to do is. So we would make a separate meal, right? So
Right.
we would
Yeah.
serve dinner, and then, she's like rejecting it or not eating enough for whatever I thought. So
Yeah.
then we go make the chicken nuggets, or then we'll make a cheese quesadilla, or we'll make something, one of her, like, I guess, like a safe food or whatever that we know she's going to eat. Because people would say to me, like, it's okay, like, just feed her what you're eating and she'll eat if she's hungry. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, okay, well, what if she's starving to death? So then
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
you have that kind of guilty feeling. So then I'm like, okay, well, this obviously isn't working. Like, she's not eating this chicken avocado thing or whatever that I've
Right.
made. So I'm just gonna make her a cheese quesadilla.
And this again, logically completely makes sense as a parent, right? We're worried about the short-term cause of them not
Right.
eating, right? Those hangry meltdowns, all those things makes life way harder. But we're also worried about that long-term health, right? We're like, wait, but if they're not eating enough or they're not eating a variety of foods, they get sick more often or they're not growing and
Yeah.
developing to their full potential, especially their brains right now are so, so important to get the nutrients that they need. So we have this like kind of dual layer pressure and stress feeling. And so it makes sense that if they're not eating the food that you're serving them because someone told you if they're hungry enough, they'll just eat, which is not true, by the way. If you want to enough, you'll just ride the unicycle, Jessica. You
Right.
just
Just
do it.
want it.
Yeah, just want it more. So it makes sense that that's what we're thinking and what we're going through is like, well, I just want them to eat. So I'm going to make them this other meal. What that does is it creates a reward system, essentially. If you don't eat
Yes.
what I make, you get what you want.
Right, like, you can see it so clearly. It's like,
Exactly.
I don't have to try this. I never
Yes.
have to, like, experience these new foods because I know mom's gonna make me a hot dog.
And then what a lot of parents will do is they'll do, I call these rescue meals. I don't know what everyone else calls them, but I think that makes a lot of sense, right? It's like, okay, you're not eating this. Let me rescue you with a rescue meal. And what happens is we go through phases ourselves, right? Where we're like, oh, my poor sweet baby, I love you. Just need to be eating. Let me make you a cheese quesadilla. We're like
Yeah,
super
yeah.
loving and sweet and like, oh, we just care about you. And then we'll see something online or we'll hear something from a friend or we'll get in our own head about it where we're like, no, I just have to be more firm.
Right,
I
you
have to
have to
not
eat this. Yeah.
Yes, I have to not. Well, now we've set up a reward structure where they've gotten what they want if they hold out long enough. And now they're
Yeah.
just getting better and better at holding out, not because they're vindictive, not because they're mean, not because they're even manipulative, because they are great at learning. They are great
Ugh,
at learning.
we always talk about this, but how many parallels are there between
I
picky
know.
eating and bedtime battles? Oh my gosh.
Literally, it's the same. It's like where your attention, you're the
Uh-huh.
one, you truly are the one setting up the systems in your home. So what you stand for will stand. Now, that
Yes.
does not mean you need to be cold and unloving and set them up for failure where you're making them a chicken avocado dish every night until they eat it, right? This happens all the time where parents will make it and if they don't eat it for dinner, they have to have it for breakfast the next morning. If they don't eat it for
Yeah.
breakfast, they
Oh,
have to have it for snack. And it's like until you eat it, right? And I
I think you
again,
just unlocked a traumatic memory. Hold on. Sorry to
oh, I
interrupt you.
believe it.
I think this happened with black eyed peas.
Oh, man, and do you like black eyed peas now?
No.
It's
No,
always
but
how it goes.
I think this happened to me one time. I feel like I
Yeah.
can remember cold black eyed peas being served to me. Like,
Oh.
yeah, okay, I'm so sorry. I
Okay, and
just
can we
really
just talk about, like, if you're gonna serve your kids vegetables, make them taste good. I know that
right.
maybe on your health journey, you wanna eat raw broccoli with nothing on it. Cook that broccoli up nice and tender for them, put some butter and salt on it, maybe a little squeeze of lemon, make it taste good. So if they take a bite, it tastes good. Don't give them
Right.
cold black-eyed peas. I think that's
Yeah.
another thing as parents, oftentimes we're like, "Well, they're not gonna eat it anyway, so why put the effort into it?" It's like, "No, no, no. Put the effort into it, make it delicious." So,
Yeah.
sprinkle with cheese, bake it with a little
Cheese,
extra
bacon
parmesan on
bits.
top. Yeah,
Yeah.
bacon. Literally, get it to taste so good so that when they do eat it, it's a great experience, right? Because what if you get on that unicycle and you fall right over and crack your head open? You're like, I'm never doing that again. It's
Done.
gone. I'm over it. This unicycle really coming back for the entire episode, but I think it's really, I mean, it's a great example
It
for
is.
adults who probably can't ride the unicycle. It's like a totally different experience for us. Yeah. So
And
the goal
keep
isn't to
making it.
just
Yeah.
be like this cold, this is how it is, my way or the highway, like complete authoritarian. Like we
Yeah.
want to work with our children. And so by setting them up for success to eat new foods, what that looks like is not waiting until they're not eating to make them something new. What we want to do is we want to create an environment on their plate that they have at least one safe food. Safe food does not equal favorite food. This is where parents start to get confused. We're like, well, now make it a safe food, and they just keep eating cheese quesadillas for breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack every day for the next 2 months.
Yeah.
No, no, no. The goal, a safe food is not a favorite food. All favorite foods are safe foods, but not all safe foods are favorite foods. Safe foods are a food that they've reliably eaten in the past,
Yes.
something that they can fill their belly up with. So this is
Yes.
important to be a part of their meal at every single meal and snack. And the other thing that a lot of parents miss, I need to be better about talking about this. It's not just available to them. It's not, oh, we had this wonderful chicken avocado dish, and I also made some fish sticks for Sally. It's,
Yes,
I
we
also,
all get fish
we
sticks. We all
all
get
get
one
fish
fish stick.
sticks.
Yeah.
Yes, right. It's available to everyone if they want it, right? They get to decide if they actually want it. But a safe food is available to everyone. It's not special for them. It's not unique for them. There's no essence or feeling of like, mom only made this because she knows I'm not going to eat that. Otherwise, we're rewarding
Right.
that behavior.
Okay, that's so good. So you're not doing it as a reward. You're not doing it, you're not rewarding the standoff. And so then
Right.
you're making the cheese quesadilla. The cheese quesadilla is part of the meal. But
Yeah,
by having that safe food, you're also like ensuring they're not going to have the hangry meltdown. You're ensuring that
exactly.
peace of mind. Yeah, as a mom, like they have eaten food. I
Yeah.
love that. Yes, I think that's such a great tip. So you can introduce new things as long as there's something safe that they can fall back on to
Right.
feel fed.
And this,
Um,
this idea of setting them up and kind of being like rewarding this behavior that you don't want, right? Which happens to all of us all the time in parenting. So you're not alone in that. But that's the same thing with desserts. Is you're essentially saying, hey, if you clean your plate, if you take enough bites, if you make me happy, then you can have dessert. And what we're ultimately creating is like these people pleasers who are just there to please mom. And the goal is not to please us. The goal is to eat because they want to and they need to fill their body and learn how nutrition and food affects their body, not because they're trying to make us happy or keep us from getting upset. And it also creates a dichotomy between desserts and food where you'll talk to 1,000 adults and all of them will say the same thing. I have a raging sweet tooth. Keep those brownies away from me. They're quote unquote dangerous. I can't keep myself away from them. And oftentimes, and this isn't, it's not as proven in the science as I believe it should be, but I think that they are so directly correlated to how
mhm.
you were raised around food as a kid. If you were told that desserts had to be earned, that they are
Mhm.
special, that they are a reward, they are a treat, they are this scary food that you can't get too much of. Like no one's going to say no to more broccoli on your plate, but mom's going to be like, no, you can only have one piece of brownie, right? Like it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
very restricted. And then they become adults who were told how much to eat, when
Yeah.
to eat, what foods to eat, and how to earn dessert. And now all of a sudden you have all these adults who are completely wrapped
Yeah.
around food with a lot of unhealthy mindsets. So it's really important to set them up for
Yes.
success, just mindset wise too, along with nutrition.
I love that. And you're making me think of another story. I was definitely raised where we have dessert, if we eat our food. It wasn't something that was available all the time. It was related to how much we ate of our dinner for sure. And so then, like, fast forward to college, one of my roommates, she lived in a house which had much more access to sweets and it wasn't correlated to the food she was eating. And she had one of
Yeah.
those moms that always had little dishes of like M&Ms and like
Right.
candy
Yep.
sitting around. And so then come around the holidays or Halloween time or whatever, she would put out little dishes of, yeah, Reese's peanut cups in our
Sure.
apartment.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you cannot just have a pile of candy sitting here. And like, I just see you walk by it.
What
Are
are
you
you
doing?
doing?
Why are
Yes.
you making me eat all this candy? But it was the same thing. It was like always so restrictive to me. So to
Yeah.
just have access to it was crazy. So I think
So
yeah,
crazy.
it does
Yeah.
come back to how you were raised and your whole mindset around it for sure. Because I'm one of those raging sweet tooth people
Yeah. Once you
for
start, you can't
sure.
stop, all the things. And it's all relative, right? There's lots of input in all of our relationships to food and nutrition and all those things. So it's all relative. But this is where I really start to see that picky eating is the beginning of the end of your relationship with food. It's the first time our kids say no to food. It's the first time they start getting pressured around food, get told what to
Hmm.
eat, when to eat, how much to eat. One of the things that it's so simple that I teach parents, like, look at your kid right now. How hungry are they? You
You
actually
don't.
don't know. You think you know. And I get it. Listen, I completely get it. We know that they need nutrition. We know what their quote unquote needs are. But if you're looking at a stranger on the street, you know just as much about their hunger and needs as you do about your kids because you think you can get the whole picture because again, we're taking our experience as adults and putting it onto kids and we're saying, "Well, I'm roughly the same amount of hungry day to day." Not always, but
The
we're not
times. Yeah.
growing, right? Like we're in a totally different season of
Yeah.
life that they're in a totally different season. So their growth patterns are huge spikes by plateaus. So some days they might eat. I kid you not, one time my son ate 5 bananas. Okay. 5, that's an entire bunch of bananas. That is a
Yeah.
bunch of
That's a
bananas.
lot.
And then I kid you not within 3 days later, he had half a banana and was like, I'm full. And I'm like, wait, I just bought them from Costco. What are you talking
I bought
about?
you 37 bananas for this week. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's like so confusing to us as adults because our life is very different than where they're at in their growth journey. And we don't know when those spurts are going to happen and
Mm.
those plateaus are going to happen. So to try and anticipate that is going to cause you way more headache than it is to trust your kid and teach them how to trust themselves on filling up their belly when they need to. I know it feels like it takes more time, but trust me, the time that you put into it will save you years of time trying to guess and make separate meals and have arguments with them and end meals in despair and frustration and tears, to set them up for success and truly teach them the skill of eating.
I love that. I love that. And you're so right. The time that it takes to learn new skills just pales in comparison to the amount of time that you're going to save. I mean, it's so much
Right.
faster to just learn how to do it right than just struggle. Okay, this has been so wonderful. And I know that we've shared at the beginning of this episode this free training that you've offered to all of our listeners, where you're going to explain to them how they can reverse these picky eating trends that they've seen in their kids. I
Yeah.
think, is it like 4 steps that you teach in there?
Yeah, there's 4 steps to reverse picky eating, and the training's really helpful for those of you who are listening to this. If you've already thought, "Oh, I've already done all these things, they still won't eat." This training's for you because you're gonna learn exactly why that is, why
Yeah.
all these kind of more I kinda talked about those foundational structures. If you already have those in place and your kid is still picky, there's more for you available that no one really talks about. So it's for you if that. It's also for you if you listen to all this and you're like, "Oh, that's still not work for my kid." Like, it still wouldn't work. Even if I
Yeah.
did all the things Alyssa just said, no, trust me, they are so stubborn, they are so difficult. They just won't eat, whatever that might be. Trust me, this training will teach you the 4 steps to reversing picky eating for your child, no matter how picky they are. Even, and this is why I teach kids ages 1 through 7. One is usually not picky yet. It's like, how can I prevent this? How can I set
Yeah.
them up for success ahead of time? Or when we start to see these little inklings of pickiness, so if that's where you're at and your kid's not even picky yet, you just want to learn how to prevent it or learn and understand kind of a different perspective, or your kid is like the pickiest eater of all time, trust me, this class will help you understand why and how to reverse it.
Yeah. Or I would even say, if you feel like you're a picky eater and you don't know
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
why, but now you're hearing this, you're like, maybe it was something the way my parents fed me, then maybe
Yeah.
learn a new way to do that for your kids.
I mean, honestly, it's one of the best things you can do is model that behavior for your kids of trying new things. My kids were cheering me on, trying mushrooms, and I was explaining everything to them along the process.
Yeah.
And now I truly do love mushrooms. Mostly cooked, though. I'm still not on like the raw mushroom fan, but we'll get there. Maybe
You'll
one
get
day
there.
we'll get there.
You'll get
And it's
there.
okay. This is one thing parents, sorry to launch back in, but one of the things that parents will ask me is like, well, at some point they just have preferences, right? Yeah, absolutely. We all have preferences as adults. I don't know a single person. Well, actually, my dad, I think he likes everything he's ever eaten. Of course, like most adults have preferences, but that's their job to figure out their preferences, not yours to assume. And so,
Mm.
really, you want to give them the opportunity to have the widest base possible as children so that when they're adults, hopefully they're like me and you, where they only don't like 2 foods mushrooms and olives. All right,
Okay,
that's your
we
choice.
can still live a pretty well-rounded food life,
Yeah, yeah, we'll
eliminating
do
those
all
things.
right.
Well, let's share the URL where people can sign up for your free training. It's nutritionforlittles.com/eat veggies.
That's right.
That's something that we want our kids
That's
to
right.
do. That's what we're
That's
going to learn how to
exactly
do
right.
here. Okay, I've got one final thing I want to end on, which is kind of like where our two worlds overlap in like a little Venn diagram. So
Love
you
it.
talk about eating, I talk about sleep. Let's talk about bedtime snacks. Bedtime snacks is something that I hear all the time that kids use as a really compelling stall tactic by saying, I'm hungry. And then you are the parent thinking, well, I mean, they didn't eat a great dinner because they didn't eat the chicken avocado dish, which I don't know what that is, by the way, but
I know. We keep mentioning. I'm
look
like,
it up.
I'm
Between
gonna
that and the
try this
unicycle.
recipe.
So, yes, they didn't eat a great dinner. So, like maybe they are hungry. So, you find yourself going in for some goldfish or whatever at 8 o'clock at night. So, talk to me about your philosophy on bedtime snacking.
So, really, to talk about bedtime snacks, I also want to just talk about one of those foundational structures we need to have in place is we need to give our kids opportunities to eat. It's not when they say they're hungry. Kind of like I actually love that you teach this with sleepy signs. You're like, if they're
Yeah.
already rubbing their eyes and yawning, you've missed it. Like, same thing
Yeah.
with
That's,
hunger. It's like if you're
yeah.
waiting for them, a toddler or a young kid to come to you and say, I'm hungry, you haven't missed it, but it's like you're on the tail end. Like, you got to get them food quick, right? And then it is
Yeah.
easy to grab things like pretzels and goldfish. So we want to look for those kind of like signs earlier that they're hungry, but also what works for our family. And we want to give them ample opportunity to eat. That's 3 meals a day plus I like to say between 1 and 3 snacks per day. Every family is gonna be different on what that looks like. Again, your values, what is most important. We don't want those windows to get too big. So sometimes with bedtime snacks, we see a few things happen. One, just like you said, it's kind of encouraged because they missed dinner and they know if they miss dinner, they'll get a bedtime snack. So now we're looking at that like reward behavior
Yeah.
cycle. Sometimes that happens. That is not the goal. That's not why we're doing bedtime snacks. Two is that our eating window is literally it's too big where they're trying to go to bed now. And listen, this is like go take Jessica's course because like obviously you talk about getting them to bed earlier, but if you're feeding them at 5:30, but they're not going to bed till 8:30, you're having quite a big window where yeah, they probably are
Yeah.
starting to get hungry. Their bellies are smaller than ours, right? So paying attention to that and noticing, okay, what's this window of time that I'm expecting them to fall asleep when they are starting to get hungry? I don't know if you've ever stayed up late. Hi, hello, that's my life. But I start to get hungry
Not
again.
me.
Of course, feed at
Yeah.
5:30. By 10 o'clock, I'm like, oh my gosh, I could use a bedtime snack. That is biologic because I'm still awake. Thinking about your schedule, maybe shifting. Maybe you need to move bedtime up a little bit, probably is the
We
case if
do.
you're talking to
We do.
Jessica,
Yeah.
or you need to move dinner time back towards bedtime
Yeah.
a little bit. And then you don't have to have a bedtime snack. The goal with a bedtime snack, if you decide to have it, you do not only have it when they skip dinner, it is part of your
Yes.
routine.
It
So
is
it is
part of
either
your
in
routine.
or out of your routine. I wouldn't,
I agree.
very rare for me to make exceptions. Ask my kids. Very rare
I
for
agree
any
with that.
exceptions.
And I also recommend doing it in a place where food is allowed, not necessarily in their room. But yeah,
Yes,
you have this
100. Great
snack
point.
and not a favorite beloved food.
This
Something,
is the other thing.
yeah, okay.
Boring bedtime snack. It needs to
Boring.
be so boring. I actually recommend a lot to my students that like just like pick 4 that you cycle between and they don't get a choice. Like they're not choosing between 4. It's like these are the 4 that I
Tonight.
rotate between and they're so boring that the
Yep.
kids are like, "Okay, I guess I'll just go to bed." you know? And so I recommend things like a banana and a cup of milk is like a great one. Is like
Mm-hmm.
balanced, got a little protein. High fat foods are really helpful before bed, so you could do something like that. But a banana and a cup of milk is a great one. You could do a peanut butter roll up and milk, but some kids, that's really exciting to them. So maybe you want to stay away from that. Cottage cheese and fruit, like I do pears or peaches a lot of times with cottage cheese. You can even do yogurt, like a full fat yogurt with some berries on top or chia seeds. You'll have to pay attention. I will say
Or
some
cheese stick.
kids,
Cheese stick.
cheese
Yeah.
stick can be
Yeah.
great. Yeah. Some kids are a little more sensitive to berries at night just because of their sugar content. So just be mindful if it like then starts to keep them up. But yeah, cheese stick is great. And also brush your teeth afterwards. I know it's really easy to be like, oh, just go in bed and read your book and have a snack and then go to bed. Brush their teeth. You have to have them brush their teeth. And that's like another encouragement for them to come eat it at the table, not in their
Yes.
bed.
Yes, absolutely. Well, this has been amazing. I think you've given a lot of great tips. I think one thing that I hope everyone can take away from this episode too is just like you've done a great job of normalizing the struggles that we all go through, have gone through, or likely will go through with our kids if we haven't seen this yet. And just
Right.
to know that it's normal, expected, part of the development process, but that there are tools that we can use and learn if we feel like our kid is not eating enough food, is not eating a balanced diet, if we're having those dinner time struggles and it just feels like a battle every night, it doesn't have to
Exactly.
be that way.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
This has been wonderful. Again, if you want to get Alyssa's free training where you learn her 4 steps to reverse picky eating, you can visit nutritionforlittles.com/eat veggies.
That's
And you
right.
can also find Alyssa on Instagram at Nutrition for Littles. She's got great content over there. And the last thing I was going to say was you were going to actually stick on with me for a little bit. If you are part of my Sleep Tight Without a Fight program, if you're in our Sleep Tight community, Alyssa and I are going to do a deep dive Q&A on some questions that y'all have submitted. It's going to be posted inside of our Facebook group. So if you're in our program, make sure to check out the Facebook group. Thank you so much for coming today, Alyssa. This has been wonderful.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for having me.